why Miss South Africa? Like, why would you want to go into a beauty pageant coming from that sort of context?
South Africa doesn't have access to opportunities. If you don't know people who know people, it's very hard to get to where you need to get to. There are a lot of brilliant people out there, but unless you've got the visibility, it's very difficult. I've always believed that education was important, and we are told that education is the key to economic emancipation, but access to opportunities to me has always been the big thing. I graduated with a triple major, and I still couldn't find a job. And one of my friends, Tulisa, actually, was like, you should enter Miss South Africa. I couldn't walk in heels, and watching Miss South Africa, honestly, back in the day, I never thought it was meant for a girl like me. I've got an ass. I've got hips. I don't know how to do my hair most of the days. Like, I can just walk out. Most of the time, my partner always has to say, ow, you know. But I've just been very comfortable in my skin, but I thought my comfortability with self would never belong on a platform like that. But then you see the power of representation and how far it goes. And honestly, I'm a person of my word. So because I promised my friend, I had to enter. It was just really surprising when I got to top 35 and then had South Africans vote me as like their favorite in the top 10. And even before I won, my uncle, Ropiwa, said, if you believe the crown is yours and the crown is yours, if you don't believe that the crown is yours, then it's not yours. But I think for me, the crown was never the end goal. It was never what I didn't like to be seen. I don't like to be seen in that way. But for me, it was always, let me say my final statement. My final statement was about mental health. As someone who had been bullied, as someone who had lived with so many, I guess, not so many, but so much sadness because I couldn't understand why people could be so unkind. It was really important to me, especially during COVID, to speak about mental health. It just so happened that they called my name and I won Miss South Africa. But the goal has always been my why and never the crown. The crown is just a cherry on top, I guess, and I'm very privileged to have been a Miss South Africa and to have, met the little girls that I did and the many people that I did and represented women who look like me, who think like me. But I don't think being a Miss South Africa sort of, I guess, negates one's academic pursuits. I think what it did is that it allowed me to learn how to speak publicly. I could never speak publicly. It allowed me to be comfortable in a room, to carry myself in a room. And it did a lot for me that education couldn't. Learning in a classroom is one thing, but there's so many other lessons outside of the classrooms that I feel like with everything that's currently happening in the world right now, being smart can only take you so far. It can only take you so far. Navigating rooms, building networks, also creating opportunities, not just for yourself, but for other people is really important. I knew that if I did my job right as a finalist and showed people how smart I was, what I cared about, what I wanted to do, even if I didn't win the crown, I've already got this pool of networks that I could use for whatever else that I wanted to in life. And even post Miss South Africa, I knew that even during Miss South Africa actually, I knew that I had access to different people, different corporate leaders, different government leaders, and I could have conversations about things that mattered to me and see how they can partner with me in order to make those a reality. But without a platform where people saw someone like me, someone that was raised by a single mom, someone from a small village, someone who went to a good school but didn't necessarily have someone who'd say, here's an internship, here's a mentor, I only got those things post the fact, and it should never be the case, unfortunately. But the reason why it mattered is because I did get the triple major. I was top 10% of my class in one of the hardest classes, but I still couldn't find a job. So Miss South Africa basically gave me that visibility that I needed to jump a few hurdles, and I'm so grateful for it. But like I said, we need to change the systems where not everyone needs to be Miss South Africa in order to be visible. So we need to change the systems to ensure that everyone gets a seat at the table.
Any Miss South Africas that you also had seen before you that you kind of looked up to, or who maybe set an example of what was possible, or how you could sort of use this platform to your advantage to go on to these bigger aims?
I think Basana Kumalo and Peggy Sue Kumalo showed that it was possible to move from South Africa into being a business leader or corporate leader, where you could be both. You could be a business titan but also be a beauty pageant queen.
And then my last little Miss South Africa question is obviously, so when you won, obviously there were a lot of different reactions, lots of really positive ones, but also I think a lot of people I guess for some reason it was a little bit controversial, or there was some kind of negative reactions. Considering also that, especially that you were even considering like talking about mental health, and then to also have some of these like very intense negative reactions, or this, sort of backlash from some of the public, like what was navigating that like, especially because it's on such a much greater scale than probably what you've ever dealt with before?
I learned to shut up. You don't have to respond to everything. I to this day, I still read some of the craziest things, right? Like, I've learned to be okay with being the villain, and that's fine. Like, I had to be okay with it. Like, I mean, before I even won, I was being bullied for something I didn't even do. I woke up one day, someone created a fake account, and somehow I was being attacked even by people I knew. And had it not been for my family and how I was raised, I would have reacted. But the truth was, if you just sit and wait it out, not only will people get bored, but the truth always comes out.
Have you been like in any way particularly a bit like intentional, or put in some sort of serious thought about like the kind of public image you are constructing? Like, is there a very sort of specific, let's say, character, for lack of a better term, like Shudu, that faces the public world, and then there's like one that you keep reserved for your friends and family, and there's certain things that the public facing you want to represent or to always kind of carry?
No, I always want to represent a person who my grandmother would be proud of. So that is in public and in private. There are certain personality traits that I have. I'm very goofy. Like, I like to laugh. My friends will tell you, like, we always joke around with each other. We like to dance. We like to have fun. But I just also am very careful that, like, certain things are sacred. But I do think both the personal and the public side of me are the same. I just don't have to show every part of me to people who do not know me and who I do not know either, because certain things need to be sacred. Like, it's like prayer. My Bible speaks about praying in the secret place, which means the things that you pray for sometimes have to be between you and God. And in the same way, certain things need to be between you and your loved ones.
Like, you speak with there's like a lot of calmness, or like a very settledness in your kind of perception of like yourself and the way you present to the world. Do you ever like, I don't know, feel any sort of like burden of like, oh, I'm a public figure and I need to be this and this thing, or like, I don't know, is there like any sort of weight around a lot of your success that has come? Or
There used to be, but no, I think I've paid my dues. And that's the value of education as well. It removes the pressure. The reason I studied, or the reason I went to do my master's, is because I never want my life to be determined by what other people say about me. Like I said, I represent a version of myself, and I am this person because I answer to people who came before me. I answer to my grandmother's prayers. I answer to my grandfather's prayers. So there's not like there's nothing that I would do that would jeopardize that, be it in private or in public. So I used to feel pressure to be a certain way, to look a certain way, or whatever. But I've realized that if it doesn't take away from my work, the same way you tap into work 9 to 5, I do have a 9 to 5, but post 9 to 5, there is still the friend, the daughter, the aunt, the granddaughter, the niece, the partner, the thought leader. There's so many things, but I never want to hide any part of myself, because I do believe that life is too short for me to model a version of myself that, God forbid, you die today and you're forgotten within a week.
so what are some of the things that really matter that you care about right now?
My family and my loved ones. I love them so much. I love being around them. I love looking at them smile and laugh. And I love etching that in my mind, because I know that that is a privilege. To love is a privilege. To spend time is a privilege. And I'm trying to be better at those things, because I think I've spent so much time perfecting things that won't matter in the long run. They'll matter, yes, because it's part of how I impact those around me. But I think with my loved ones, I've been really enjoying laughing, dancing, and sharing experiences with them.
I feel like there's like a presidency somewhere in the future. Is that like something you really like, you see yourself doing someday in the soon? Like government, politics, like more like, like actively?
No, I don't like stress, but if I'm called to do it, maybe. I always say, inshallah, if you're given the privilege of leading, it's hard, but it's a privilege. But I also understand, having been taught by politicians and, like really people who've had to make hard decisions on, God forbid, but who lives and who dies. you realize that that's a big responsibility. So I wouldn't say that I wish it for myself, but if it is in God's will, then it would be a privilege. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're done with like education for now?
For now.
For now.
For now, I know myself. I'm already thinking about like something else that I want to learn or whatever. I just love learning. Like, you're never the same after you do something. It's hard in the moment. You want to pull out your hair. But when you're done, there's something different about you. It's like pouring into your cup. And the way you pour into yourself in that way is something that no one can ever take away from you. So I always say I'm done, but who knows?
What does it mean to you to create beauty with a purpose?
I think in everything that I've said, I do think I'm a person that leads with that. I've never been someone that cares too much about how I look. I think people's beauties in how they impact those around them and how they live their lives and their integrity and their values. So beauty with a purpose for me is something that's more, inward than outward. Yeah. So it's making sure, again, that you leave the world better than you found it.
If you had to meet a younger version of yourself, maybe at like 10 years old, 8 years old, what is something you'd like to say to her?
Relax. You're more than enough. Just relax, you're more than enough. You're going to have a few awkward years. But you'll look back and you'll realize that you were more daring than you think.